The red dress they forced Maria Josefa to wear still hangs in her closet 3 years later, a reminder that some borders are crossed not into freedom, but into a different kind of prison. She keeps it sealed in plastic, hidden behind winter coats she rarely needs in Texas. Sometimes she takes it out, holds it up to the light, remembers the weight of strange hands and the taste of fear mixed with cheap tequila. Her therapist says confronting trauma helps healing. Maria thinks her therapist has never been locked in a room with men who see you as merchandise to be sold by the hour. But the story doesn't start with a dress. It starts with empty pockets and impossible choices. In a Mexican border town where desperation makes even obvious predators look like saviors. Maria had arrived in Matamoros with 300 pesos and a photo of her sister in Houston. The money lasted 2 days. The coyotes wanted $8,000 minimum for crossing. Might as well have been $8 million for a woman who'd sold everything just to reach the border. She'd spent weeks sleeping in the migrant shelter, washing dishes for food, watching others leave while she remained stuck. That's when they approached her. 3 men, well-dressed, driving a new truck. Not the usual coyotes who lurked around the shelter, but something different. Businessmen, they said. Investors in human potential. They had a proposition for women like her. Smart, strong, but temporarily without resources. The deal sounded too good to be real, which should have been her first warning. Free passage across the border. Safe transportation to Houston. Even help finding work once there. All they asked in return was loyalty. She'd work for their associates for a few months, paying back the crossing costs from her wages. Cleaning houses, they said, maybe restaurant work. Honest labor for honest debt. Maria wasn't naive. 28 years of life in Oaxaca, including 5 years working in Mexico City, had taught her that nothing came free. But desperation has a way of making bad math look reasonable. A few months of work to pay back a debt seemed better than endless months stuck in Matamoros going nowhere. She asked questions, tried to seem smart, cautious. What kind of work exactly? How much would she owe? Where would she live? The men had answers for everything. Cleaning services for wealthy American families. $3,000 debt. Fair wage garnished until repaid. Shared apartments with other workers, safe and supervised. They even showed her photos on a phone, smiling women in matching uniforms, cleaning supplies in hand, standing in front of nice American houses, testimonials from workers who'd paid off their debts and now worked independently, success stories. The American dream package for consumption by the desperate. Looking back, Maria could see all the signs she'd ignored, the way they'd specifically approach women, the vague answers about exact locations, the insistence that she decide quickly that this opportunity wouldn't last. But hunger and hopelessness make poor advisors, and she'd been both for too long. She agreed that night, signed papers she couldn't fully read. Her education had ended at 6th grade. Packed her few belongings into a plastic bag, said goodbye to the friends she'd made at the shelter, promised to send word once she was established in Houston. Some wished her luck. Others, older and wiser, said nothing but their eyes held warnings she chose not to see. The crossing itself was professional, even comfortable. No walking through desert or swimming across rivers. They drove to a warehouse where she joined 5 other women, all young, all pretty in the way that poverty hadn't yet destroyed. A hidden compartment in a cargo truck, but spacious, ventilated. The men who'd recruited her were almost gentle, offering water, snacks, reassurances. For hours later, they were in Texas. No inspection, no dogs, no drama. The compartment opened to reveal another warehouse, this one American. Maria had made it. The relief was overwhelming. She'd crossed a border that had seemed insurmountable. Now just a few months of hard work, and she'd be free to build the life she'd dreamed of. The first sign something was wrong came during the drive from the warehouse. The windows of the van were blacked out. When one woman asked why, the driver laughed in a way that wasn't funny. Security, he said. Protection for them. But protection from what? They drove for hours, far longer than Houston should have been. When they finally stopped, it wasn't an apartment building, but a large house in what looked like countryside. High walls, security cameras, men with radios patrolling the grounds. Maria's stomach tightened. This looked less like worker housing and more like a prison. Inside, the house was nice. Expensively furnished, clean, modern. But the windows had bars. The doors locked from outside. And there were too many men for this to be what they promised. Men who looked at the new arrivals like inventory being delivered. The woman who greeted them wore too much makeup and a dress too tight for housework. She introduced herself as Claudia, the house manager. She'd explain the rules, assign rooms, help them adjust to their new life. Her smile never reached her eyes, which held the flat deadness of someone who'd given up fighting long ago. That's when Maria understood. Not cleaning houses. This house. And not cleaning. The panic came in waves. She demanded to leave, to speak to the men who brought her. Claudia's dead eyes showed something that might have been pity. Those men were gone, she explained. This was her debt now. Transferred to new management. The papers she'd signed, had she read them carefully? They specified personal services, broadly defined. All perfectly legal, at least on paper. The other women were crying, shouting, demanding phones to call family. But their phones had been taken at the border. For safekeeping, they'd been told. Now they understood why. No phones, no identification, no way to contact the outside world, and nowhere to run even if they could. They didn't even know what state they were in. The house rules were simple and brutal. Work 6 nights a week. Serve whoever paid. No refusing clients. No keeping tips. Half their earnings went to debt repayment. The other half to room and board. At this rate, Claudia explained with practical calculation, they'd be free in about 2 years. Assuming no additional debts for clothes, medical care, or rule violations. Maria fought. Of course she fought. Refused to put on the dress they brought her. Refused to leave her assigned room. Refused to accept this nightmare as reality. But the house had systems for fighters. No food until compliance. No water after the second day. And when hunger and thirst didn't break her, they had other methods. The man they called LG visited on the 3rd day. Not violent, which was somehow worse. He spoke softly about market forces, supply and demand, the economics of human desire. He showed her photos on his phone. Other girls who'd fought what happened to them. Not death, he assured her. Bad for business. But there were worse things than death, weren't there? He gave her a choice that wasn't choice. Work willingly and be treated well. Good food, medical care, even small freedoms one's trust was earned. Or fight and discover how creative his employees could be in making life unbearable without leaving marks that would disturb clients. Either way, she'd work. The only question was how much she'd suffer first. Maria broke on the 4th day, put on the red dress, let Claudia show her how to apply makeup that would hide the tears, learn the rules within rules, how to smile, how to flirt, how to pretend enthusiasm for men who saw her as a rental property, how to disappear inside herself while her body went through motions that meant survival. The clients were a mix. Truck drivers who knew exactly what kind of place this was. Local men who pretended they didn't. Some were cruel. Some were kind in ways that almost made it worse. All of them were complicit in a system that turned women into commodities. But Maria learned not to think about that. Thinking was dangerous. Feeling was worse. She worked 6 nights a week for a month before the opportunity came. A regular client, older, almost apologetic about his needs. He'd taken her to a motel instead of using the house rooms. Paying extra for privacy, he said. He fell asleep afterward, snoring deeply. The door wasn't locked. His car keys were on the nightstand. Maria didn't think. Thinking would have paralyzed her. She grabbed the keys and ran. Barefoot, still in the red dress, she ran into the Texas night with no idea where she was or where to go. Just away. Away from the house, the men, the debt that would never be repaid because the math was designed for eternal servitude. She found a gas station after what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. The attendant, a young woman, took one look at her, the dress, the makeup, the barefoot desperation, and understood. Called 911 without questions. Gave her a jacket to cover herself. Stood guard until the police arrived. The police were professional but skeptical. They'd heard stories like hers before. Human trafficking was real, but so were immigration violations. Was she documented? No. Had she crossed illegally? Yes. The complexity of her situation, victim and criminal in their eyes, meant careful handling. But Maria had something the other women at the house didn't. She'd memorized the address, counted turns during drives, noted landmarks. She could lead them back, could identify the men who ran it, could testify about the operation, if it meant shutting it down. The raid happened 2 days later. 14 women rescued, though rescued was a complicated word for people who'd now faced deportation. Jeef and several others arrested, though the real bosses were never there, always insulated by layers of deniability. The house shut down, though others would open to fill the demand. Maria spent months in detention, while lawyers argued about her status. Victim of trafficking, eligible for AT visa. Illegal immigrant, subject to deportation. The legal system moved slowly, grinding through technicalities while she relived the trauma in sterile interview rooms. The T visa came through eventually. Temporary legal status in exchange for cooperation with law enforcement. She testified at trials, faced defense attorneys who implied she'd known what she was getting into, had chosen sex work, then claimed victimhood when caught. She held firm, told her truth, watched some men go to prison while others walked free on technicalities. 3 years later, Maria lives in Houston. Legal now, working at a real cleaning service. She sends money to her sister, who asks no questions about the missing months, sees a therapist who specializes in trafficking survivors, takes English classes at night, builds a life on the ashes of what almost destroyed her. But she keeps the red dress, hidden but not discarded, a reminder that crossing borders is about more than geography, that predators wait at every checkpoint, offering free passage to desperate people, that survival sometimes means doing things that leave stains no amount of cleaning can remove. She thinks about the other women sometimes, the ones still working, still trapped in houses across Texas and beyond, the debt that grows faster than it shrinks, the clients who choose not to see the desperation behind painted smiles, the system that creates demand and criminalizes supply. Her therapist says she was brave. Maria doesn't feel brave. She feels lucky. Lucky that the client fell asleep. Lucky the gas station attendant understood. Lucky the police believe her enough to investigate. Lucky the lawyers found a path to legal status. So many points where luck could have failed, where she could have become another disappeared woman in America's shadow economy. The news occasionally reports raids on similar operations. Maria reads every story, looking for names she recognizes, women she'd shared those nightmare weeks with. Sometimes she finds them arrested, deported, disappeared. Sometimes she wonders if they blame her for the raid that freed them into detention and deportation. Freedom is complicated when you're undocumented. Jeef got 15 years. Not for the trafficking. That was too hard to prove to the standards courts required. But for money laundering, tax evasion, the financial crimes that left paper trails. The women were harder to prosecute than the money. America had stronger laws protecting currency than people. Maria works 5 days a week now. Honest work for honest wages. Lives in a small apartment where she controls the locks, cooks her own food, chooses her own clothes, never wears red. These freedoms feel miraculous after the house, though she knows most Americans take them for granted. She joined a support group for trafficking survivors. Discovers her story is common. The fake job offer, the debt bondage, the calculated breaking a will. The details vary, but the structure remains consistent. Desperate people make easy targets. Borders create desperation. The cycle continues. Sometimes clients from the house recognize her. At the grocery store. On the bus. Their eyes widen, dart away. They never acknowledge her. These men who'd paid to use her body. She's become invisible in a different way now. Not merchandise, but memory. A reminder of participation in something they'd rather forget. Her sister still doesn't know. Thinks Maria spent those months working in a restaurant, saving money. The fiction is easier than truth. How do you explain being sold? How do you describe the particular horror of forced consent, of smiling while dying inside? Some stories are too heavy for family to carry. The T visa leads to a green card eventually. Maria applies, waits, hopes, builds a life that looks normal from outside, works, pays taxes, learns English, follows laws. Inside, she carries the house with her always, the weight of unwanted hands, the taste of tequila that made things bearable, the sound of doors locking from outside. She speaks at conferences sometimes, tells her story to law enforcement, social workers, people who want to understand trafficking. They nod, take notes, express sympathy. But she can see they don't really understand. Can't understand unless you've been merchandise. Unless you calculated how many men equal freedom, and known the math would never work. The red dress hangs in her closet. She'll never wear it, never throw it away. It's evidence of something that officially ended with arrests and trials, but continues in houses across America. Women working off debts that grow in darkness. Men who pay for what they know isn't freely given. Systems that create victims, then punish them for surviving. María Josefa crossed the border seeking work. Found it, though not the kind promised. Survived it, though survival came with costs still being paid. She lives in Texas now, legal and free and forever marked by those weeks when freedom meant a locked door and a red dress and men who saw her as product to be consumed. She was offered free passage. The price was everything, but she survived, escaped, testified, rebuilt. That has to count for something in a world where so many don't, where women disappear into houses that look respectable from outside, where desperation meets exploitation at every border, where freedom isn't free, but costs more than most can imagine paying. The dress hangs in her closet. Maria lives her life. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. Some borders, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Some prices, once paid, can never be refunded. She carries it all. The trauma and triumph, the red dress and the green card, the locked rooms and the keys she now controls. This is what free passage costs. This is what survival looks like. This is the price of borders in a world where human need meets human greed and creates markets for everything, including women who just wanted to work and send money home. Maria made it to America. The journey just wasn't what they promised.